we're not going to start with that. Instead, we're going to start with a conversation with several of our friends. So we have invited on to talk about their perspectives on the Black Lives Matter movement, being black in the FGC and in esports, and anything else that they sort of like to say. We've invited on Amanda Stevens, Cuddlecore, Hell Pockets, and Calm Warrior, David, to give their perspectives. They have different backgrounds, right? They're from different places. I feel like they're all people who I know and think can have good perspectives on this. Who I really want to hear from on this. I've heard some of them talk about it before, but I think it's important to give all the opportunities that we can to hear directly from people about how being black in the FGC and in the larger world has impacted them. I think this is an opportunity to do it.
Yep. So should I just bring on our first guest right away then?
You got it.
All right. So for first guest here, of course, is Amanda Stevens. How you doing, Amanda? Do you even go by Sage Gnosis anymore?
No. I haven't been Sage Gnosis content-wise in like 3-4 years.
Okay.
So it's just, I mean, it's confusing, right? Because like my Twitch is Sage Gnosis, my YouTube Sage Gnosis, but I don't.
You gotta pick a name
anymore.
When I was
I mean, it also makes it easier for people to find me. Americans notoriously don't know how to spell Gnosis, so that was like hurting my reach. But that's not what I'm here for tonight. Maybe
because I went to go look up your Twitter. And, to type it in here.
Stevens.
Yeah, I have it down there now. But, when I first did try to look you up, I tried to look up Sage Gnosis, and I was like, whoops, it's not there anymore.
So, no, that is not why you're here.
No.
The point of this is, I think, not so much to be an interview as to give you a chance to say whatever your piece is, whatever you'd like to say about life in the FGC as a black person, as a trans person, life in the larger world as either of those. You got the floor.
Sure. All right, so one of the things I definitely want to bring up, I've said it a few times. A lot of people have been asking me to talk about Black Lives Matter, especially when it comes to esports lately. And I'm not gonna rose tint glass the FGC. We talk about diversity and how diverse we are, which comparatively to a lot of the other scenes I work in, we are here's your gold participation star. You are above a very low bar. It's not a high jump. It's just a step up. But I remember when I first really got involved in the FGC as a broad sense, started going to events back in 2016. We're definitely a lot better than 2016. We were talking about this before the show even started. Just the things you would hear on commentary, people just don't say anymore. Stuff that people would say to me as a trans person at my first Evo didn't happen last year, right? Okay. there's just I'm not saying we're better or we're good, but I think we should definitely give ourselves a little bit more credit than we tend to, right? I think when we talk about things like this, it's an all or nothing, right? It's either the scene is failing us completely, or it's no, it's great, we're doing fine. And I think that's not really a fair shake for the FGC. But I do want to say that I'm really impressed with y'all. Some of you may have heard I did Transitional Combat, which was a Street Fighter V charity tournament for trans charity. And I'll be real with y'all, I thought we were not even going to raise $1,000. So the fact that some of you in this chat came up to my event, either competed or watched it or donated and got us to $10,200. That's the type of shit where I could say, look, the FGC might suck 30% of the time, but at least at the other 70% of the time, we can do good things, right? We can be a vehicle to be better.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, by the way, on that $10,000. That's so awesome, and I'm really proud of the scene for pulling that together.
Yeah, and of you for doing that too. I was listening to the podcast you did with Super Joe Monday.
I was a little spicy on that.
No, it was cool. It was all right. I just mean you're talking about what it took to get it started, and it didn't sound like it was easy. So nice work.
No, it wasn't easy, but I think it's I think the best thing about it is that like we talk a lot about like how people need to be better or do better, but one of the things that I think is never really helpful is just saying that. Either have a game plan, like how are you actionably going to make things better, or do something that promotes things being better. So in my case, it was doing transitional combat. Person who sent me the dope Puma gear, he looked at the privilege he has, and he's doing mentorship, right? Like he,
cool.
not Matt Shaw on Twitter tweeted out that like he's going to open up his Twitter DMs to mentor people who want to get into the esports industry, right? So like there's different things we can be doing to make this space better if we want it to be, right? I think we spend too much energy just accepting that things are bad and wishing it could be better and not doing enough to promote that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've mentioned about the FGC, and like we're not perfect, but we're kind of better than, we're kind of a little bit better. But I mean, you also have a different perspective because you've actually worked with a lot of the different esports, groups and games and such. I mean, how does the FGC stand in comparison to some of the other esports out there?
I mean, I think the FGC can be a little bit more insidious than other scenes. So like when I've done stuff in League of Legends, I've had people behind closed doors tell me to either present male or not bring up that I'm trans when working with teams. And so while that's not great, it's definitely just like part of the territory as being like a non-female passing trans person. But on the other hand, I definitely know from roundabout means that there are people in the FGC who don't work with me because I'm trans, right? So like at least in other parts of esports, people have just out and out said shit to me.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Right? Like there was at a point a League of Legends coach who turned me down to work with them. Like it was like at the peak of me doing League of Legends content. And then a few years later, he like DM'd me because he was feeling guilty about some shit and was like, the reason I didn't do the interview is because you're trans.
Ugh.
So like, I think that's partially because like the FGC isn't like a business in the same sense that the rest of the esports are.
Right.
So when it comes to things like that, it's more personal biases and not like optic problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is. But I'm not going to pretend like the FGC is like great, has been great to me. Like I've talked about it a lot over the years about like the shit I get in my comments. I remember a couple years ago when I was launching the Neutral, I made a Reddit thread being like, hey, what do you guys want out of an FGC talk show? And instead of people talking about my show, one dude tried to like clown me for being fat, black, and trans. And it's like, I mean, I already know I'm fat and like, I already tell people I'm trans. So like, what are we trying to accomplish here? Like, I can see a mirror, I can step on a scale, I know about my weight.
Right. I mean,
so it's...
No, I was just...
I mean, that would have happened to me in like a lot of scenes, right? Like, nerds aren't particularly great to trans and queer folks. And like, that's just a thing that will eventually get better as more and more of us just stop putting up with it and start actually being vocal and visible. But like, I'm not gonna pretend like y'all have been the nicest people to me. Not you two, right? I love working. I've interviewed David at least twice, and I've interviewed James like 4 times. Like, I love working with you both. But like, speaking broadly, the FGC hasn't always been as welcoming to me as the energy that I put out.
Right.
So,
yeah, I can't even remember when it was the first time I met you. It was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Evo 2016, because you were doing work with ESPN. It was the first time I interviewed you because I asked you if you thought that if the FGC needed something like a community board.
Right, okay.
Like a ruling party to promote things into the FGC. And at the time, you said, no, I don't think we need that because, we're grassroots.
Right.
And we manage our scenes pretty well. I don't know if your opinion on that is the same these days. I'm going to take a guess that maybe you might be on board for a community board these days.
Yeah, things are a little different these days. I mean...
Well, what about you? What's your perspective on that? Yeah, Amanda.
So, I've actually been talking to Hado. So after what happened with LTG and Ceroblast, where a lot of people said that, these major TOs need to have more transparency, and maybe, we just have a concrete rule set. Rick had made a tweet saying that he was very interested in figuring out with the other TOs how to create sort of an across-the-board code of conduct type of panel, similar to what like the Smash community has, right? And I got into DMs with him, and things got a little crazy because COVID started getting more and more intense than people expected it to be, so that project has fallen by the wayside. But I definitely think it's something we need. Do I think that we need to be like League of Legends, where like all of the publishers get together and they lay down the law? No. I think we can do what the Smash community has. We make a generalized code of conduct that doesn't clash with any of the titles' own code of conducts, right? So Capcom Pro Tour, Tekken World Tour, all of that stuff. And then we also decide, like, hey, if like this is what we expect out of these cosigns, right? Combo Breaker, CEO, East Coast Throwdown, right? And then we just put community members and TOs on that board, just like the Smash community does. And I'm not saying the Smash community is great, but at least when they lay down the law, it feels consistent, right? And people can look and say, nope, this isn't some vendetta against LTG, this isn't some vendetta against Cero, this isn't some vendetta against F-Champ. They can literally be like, we got these bylaws, like, y'all can read it. And like, here's the panel of people that made this decision, right? It's not, oh, well, East Coast Throwdown was the first person to say you're banned from our tournaments, and then maybe there was some like backroom conversation and like some group chat that they all came up and was like, oh, well, you say it first and like we'll follow suit. Because it does feel a little like sketch when it happens that way, right? It feels weird when it has to be like Rick's the first one to say, you're banned, never come to another Combo Breaker. And then all of a sudden, Jabali's like, you're banned too. And then East Coast Throwdown's like, you're banned. And then Evo's like, you're banned. And you're like, well, why couldn't y'all just have like made an announcement? Why does it feel like you're just dunking on a person? Right?
Right, okay.
Right? It does get the same thing across, but it feels real weird that someone always has to be the first one, because it gives that optic of like, oh no, well, Rick said it, so like, shit, do we have to say something? Because then it tells the community, well, maybe that other TO felt pressured, right? Like, because Combo Breaker said something, well, now I have to say something. And I think that when you're in that type of space, it doesn't lead to like healthy community optics. When I was part of the Magic the Gathering community, one of the things that I really pushed for at events was to have visible code of conduct and visible parts of the infraction procedure guide, so that it never felt like you were just broadsided because you got penalized or something. Because then it's not hidden information. It's not like a need to know thing. It's literally everywhere. When you go to a Magic event, there is a poster my height that says code of conduct, and it's all the things you should do when you're at a Magic event. I haven't seen shit like that at an Evo.
Yeah.
And so then when somebody says, oh, you did something wrong, then the community argues about whether or not it's actually morally correct or not. And then you got people drawing lines in the sand when it literally should just be as easy as, no, don't do this, or yes, do that. Like, it shouldn't be hard. We're fucking adults, right? Like, 80% of the people who go to an FGC event are like 20 or older, right? Like, it shouldn't be this hard for a bunch of adults to just, like, agree to be decent human beings to each other.
I agree theoretically. Yeah.
I mean, that
Right?
you just stated the problem with the world.
I get it. It's hard to be a decent human being sometimes, but like,
It's not, but people just don't want to be.
Easier for each other, just like
I'm not sure it's
a
so
little
hard.
bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
Man.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No, because I'm pretty sure one of the other guests will probably get to a thing that I feel about, because I agree a lot with Chris and Cuddle on a lot of things, so I'm pretty sure they'll touch on it. Because I know Cuddle probably has some things to say about black women and the FGC,
Right.
so I'll definitely let that be the thing that she's good at talking about it. So
Okay.
I cede the floor.
Okay.
Sounds good. Well, thanks a lot, Amanda. I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, but before you go, though,
No problem.
I mean,
Thanks for having me.
before you go, I mean, obviously you're planning more transitional combats and other events. Would you like to plug any of that stuff as well?
So I will be announcing on Twitter tomorrow the opening of the Transitional Combat Discord. It'll serve two purposes. One, to manage online tournaments, because you need a space to do that. But also, it's going to be used as a vehicle for empowerment. What that means is that we're going to be having industry people come in giving seminars. We're going to have AMAs with pro players. We're going to have workshops. So like Bracketology 101 is a workshop that we're working on right now. I've been talking to people like UIU Shen to do a workshop on like how to market yourself as a freelancer. So it's not just going to be a server about fighting games. It's going to, one of the things I have a big philosophy on is the way that you make a space better is you fill it with good people. And so if all of these diverse people are making the space better by being more active in it and feeling more empowered to be a part of it, I think that's how you cause real change to happen.
That
Sounds
awesome.
about right to me. All right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on here. So